Alright, this time we're taking a look back at what will likely be the most important Rocky movie going into Creed 2 later this month, Rocky IV. If you haven't seen my videos on the previous films, you can check them out right here in the corner. Rocky III began to take the series in a campy direction, but Rocky IV has so much camp it may as well be set out in the woods. Rocky IV is a full-on 80s action movie with a hammy, overdone everything, and a big dose of that signature late Cold War American patriotism that defined many Hollywood action films from this era. All of the subtlety and quiet charm of the first films is gone. I do still really love this film though, for completely different reasons. Rocky IV deals with the struggle of looking back on your legacy and what to do next once you've peaked and can no longer live up to the world's expectations for you.
What happens when you're not on top, then what? Where do we go, Stallion?
It becomes clear early on in the film that Apollo in particular, played for the final time here by Carl Weathers, is having a bit of a midlife crisis. Against everyone else's advice, he decides to challenge a young Russian boxer named Ivan Drago to an international exhibition match, despite having been retired for 5 years by this point. He even reverts to his boisterous, cocky attitude from the first few movies, a persona he seemed to have largely grown past by Rocky III.
I don't want to change, man. I like who I am.
A key factor in Apollo's ego here is his extreme patriotism, which, like everything else in Rocky IV, is on steroids. He does a similar American-themed entrance routine to what he did in the original film, only this time it's turned up to 11 with a live performance of Living in America by James Brown, complete with backup dancers, pyrotechnics, and mechanical stage elements. He's clearly in a rut and wants to recapture his youth while simultaneously winning a proxy victory on behalf of his country, to be a hero again.
It's us against them. What are you talking about? Come on.
You think maybe it ain't against him? You think maybe it's like you against you?
Infidelity is also often the sign of a midlife crisis. While it's never mentioned in Rocky IV, the film Creed reveals that Apollo was cheating on his wife around this time, eventually resulting in the birth of his son, Adonis. When the fight finally begins, Apollo is absolutely taken apart by Drago, and it immediately becomes clear that he has no chance of defeating the Russian. Despite serious risk of injury and against the insistence of both Rocky and his trainer Duke, Apollo refuses to give up, making Rocky promise not to throw in the towel. Apollo takes a bad hit from Drago and goes down in the second, concluding his fall from grace and ending his life. Apollo Creed has been my favorite character in the Rocky series up to this point, and his death in Rocky IV was a blow, but in my opinion it was a fine direction for the character. If Apollo had stuck around, he could have run the risk of becoming Rocky's sidekick, the former enemy turned friend who's not quite as good as the hero and gets beaten by the bad guy at the beginning of the movie to show how tough he is. At least Rocky IV gives Apollo a tragic but interesting character arc to go out on in his final appearance.
God, I feel born again.
Apollo's trainer, Tony Duke, played by Tony Burton, gets fleshed out more in Rocky IV. While the other 3 films gave him some development, you've got a definite sense that he cared for Apollo beyond simply his role as the champ's trainer, this film elaborates that Duke was also a father figure to Apollo, having essentially raised him.
When he died, part of me died.
The rest of the movie pretty much writes itself. Duke trains Rocky once again to avenge both Apollo and America in a climactic showdown at the end of the film. During the first half of the movie, Rocky was concerned about Apollo and jealous that he wanted to fight other people. Then after Apollo's death, Rocky is driven by guilt over not ending the fight when things were looking bad. He's also pissed at Drago for going so overboard on Apollo in what was supposed to be an exhibition, as well as for his indifference over the former champ's death.
If he dies, he dies.
After Mr. T as Clubber Lang in the previous film, there was no topping the absurdity of that character. So instead of trying, Swedish actor Dolph Lundgren took Ivan Drago in the opposite direction. He's normally extremely reserved, rarely speaking or even emoting except when physically exerting himself, though when that happens, he's pretty over the top. Most of the exposition on his end is delivered either by his trainer or by his wife, played by Brigitte Nielsen, who was the actual wife of Sylvester Stallone at the time of this movie. Ivan Drago is an extremely intimidating presence throughout the film. He's like a Russian Terminator, with the movie even comparing him to a machine.
Whatever he hits, he destroys.
Unfortunately though, he gets even less development in this movie than Clubber Lang did last time. Here's hoping Creed 2 does a little bit more to beef up Drago's character.
Because of you, I'll lose everything.
Rocky IV may not be particularly substantive compared to its predecessors, but it's definitely not short on entertainment value. For example, there's this one subplot in the film where Rocky's brother-in-law Paulie is given a robot butler for his birthday. No, really. Initially, Paulie is put off by the gift, but he grows more attached to it after having it reprogrammed to dote on and compliment him with a seductive female voice.
You're the greatest. See you, sport.
That's my girl. She loves me. Oh.
But then later on in the film, he gets sick of his robot girlfriend after it starts acting like a stereotypically fussy wife.
If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times.
Stop busting my chops. I'm gonna have a wires tied when I get back.
Yeah, it's weird, but fascinatingly weird. Rocky IV also contains no fewer than 5 montages, one of which is mostly a greatest moments reel from all the earlier films. Like, it's really well edited and everything, but does it really need to be here? I get that Rocky is supposed to be looking back on his life, but this montage isn't adding anything to the film apart from the running time, which is barely over 90 minutes, and oh, I think I just answered my own question. Rocky IV makes a point in its multiple training montages of contrasting the regimens of Rocky and Ivan Drago, showing the two perform variations on similar exercises. Drago has all of this state-of-the-art training equipment and is taking steroids, while the Italian stallion is going all natural, living and training out of a cabin in the Russian wilderness. During the minute 10 seconds between montage number 4 and 5, there's this brief scene where Adrian arrives in Russia where Rocky's training, and I'm just thinking, okay, so Rocky's here, and Paulie's here for some reason.
No room service, I bet. I hope they got my comics here.
And now Adrian's here too, so who's at home watching Rocky Jr., the robot? Ah, damn it. This is the only film in the original Rocky series not to be scored by Bill Conti, who turned it down to work instead on The Karate Kid Part 2. In yet another connection to the Karate Kid series, the song Glory of Love from Karate Kid 2 was originally written for Rocky IV, but was passed over in favor of Hearts on Fire. That's right, folks, at one point, this was intended to be the anthem of the film where Rocky avenges Apollo's death.
I don't wanna lose you. I could never make it alone. I am a man who will fight for your honor. I'll be the hero.
Like, at this point, I'm only half joking about shipping these two. Rocky IV's score is provided by Vince DiCola, who would go on the following year to provide the score to Transformers the movie. Though I'll always prefer Conti's orchestral tracks from the first few films, the techno score by DiCola is also pretty awesome, adding tremendously to the 80s look and feel of the film and giving it an undeniably distinct flavor that sets it apart similarly to how Eye of the Tiger set Rocky III apart. I do wish though that some space could have been made for Gonna Fly Now, which is omitted here for the first time in the series. Rocky's showdown against Ivan Drago begins on Christmas morning in Moscow, and Rocky is greeted by a booing crowd for the first time since winning the title. Despite all the bad blood between these two characters, Sylvester Stallone and Dolph Lundgren became pretty good friends off camera and would go on to work together again on the Expendables movies, while Ivan Drago would go on to become the first Rocky antagonist besides Apollo Creed to return for any of the sequels. Of course, Rocky once again defeats his opponent handily, having also somehow turned the hostile Russian crowd to his side like a shonen protagonist. He delivers a stirring speech about friendship and war is bad and stuff, as everyone on the bus stands up and begins to slowly applaud. And that, kids, is the 100% true story of how Rocky Balboa single-handedly ended the Cold War. Having already defeated communism, who would be the next villain to feel the sting of the Italian stallion's righteous left hook? Would it be neo-Nazis? Terrorists? Aliens?
Welcome to Earth.
By this point, it seemed like the Rocky series had flown as far as it was gonna, with each film coming out more implausible and over the top than the last. The original premise of the washed-up club fighter with a 1 in a million shot at the title had been left behind ages ago, and by 1985, Sylvester Stallone was 39 years old. Hell, Rocky had been talking about retirement since the second movie.
Well, I'm officially retired now.
Presidents retire, generals retire, horses retire. That's what you should have done, retire.
I think maybe it's time that I should retire.
The word is that this is Rocky's last fight, win, lose, or draw.
Oh yeah, this is definitely the last one. We gotta face the facts too. You don't want to believe it, but maybe the show is over.
It would be 5 more years before Stallone got around to another entry, the universally panned film that almost killed the franchise. Next time, we're taking a look at Rocky V. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, help me out by hitting the like button, subscribing for more content like this in the future, and commenting down below letting me know your thoughts on Rocky IV. I've got lots of other videos up on my channel you can check out if you enjoyed this one. Thanks very much once again, all of you, for watching, and take care.
bad we gotta get over.